All right, you have children in front of you. And the famous quote is, never work with children or animals. But they're a lot of fun, so why wouldn't you want to? And quite simply, there'll be many times in your career that you simply just won't have a choice. Now, you're actually at a wedding, you will find that the children will get a lot of attention. And that's just a fact. And I got to say, I say it often as a joke, but I actually really mean it. I often say to the bride, oh my God, the flower girl, the page boy is so cute. Half the album is going to be of them. Normally when I say that out loud, once every blue moon, the bride might say, better not. But the fact is that if you're at a wedding, there's going to be mayhem with the little ones because they're unpredictable. If you're photographing a family portrait, yes, whether newborn, whether they're a toddler, whether they're at that teenage age, whatever it may be, obviously children are unpredictable, but that's the beauty of photographing children. I find that you just can't control children very well. Yes, there's going to be some times where you have well-behaved children that they're of a certain age where you can reason with them and you can do classic portraiture and beautiful lighting and all those different things. When you're at a family group session, whether it's on location, an environmental portrait, or you're photographing children at a wedding, you've got to do your best. If you want to looking in the camera photograph, great. If you want them interacting, if you want them to hold hands with the page boy and the flower girl, like whatever you basically want, just know that there's going to be a high degree of difficulty and there's going to be a point where you're going to say, this is not working, no time, we've got what we've got, move on. And you'll find this especially when you've got sort of young children who just need to nap at a certain time. Some of the parents will just say, look, you know what, they're not here, don't worry, take the family photograph, let's do it. And then you just do it. But you've got to keep in your mind that if they're awake later on, they will probably blame you still that you didn't take a family photograph or a bridal party photograph, including the page boy and the flower girl. It's your fault that you didn't actually bring that up later on in the day. So just take responsibility, do the best you can under the circumstances. Now, you've probably heard of what a reveal means, and I discussed that a bit earlier, and how the bride and groom will meet, and before the ceremony, so they can meet, we can take photographs afterwards and all these different things. We call it a reveal. That's the term that's been popularised. I certainly, among many, have popularised the notion of doing a reveal with a father. In other words, the bride will see the father for the first time as a bride in a beautiful bridal dress and create a moment out of that. And it could even be with the parents or whoever it may be, like the mum and so on. I had never done a reveal with the children before, as in this is the first time the page boy will see the flower girls. And the first time I did it, I struck gold. This is like meeting them for the first time, and often I'll speak with a little baby voice and I'm like, ew, boy germs, ew, whatever it might be, or, and then all of a sudden you sort of amplify what's going on. This girl is sort of, on the tall girl there, she's probably thinking, I don't know if I like him or not. She's probably at that age where she doesn't like boys yet, but sort of a bit confused. She's a bit grumpy there in the middle. And of course, she's like very intrigued. Oh my God, he's very sweet. I like the look of him. So just remember to embrace the children. And the hardest part when you're photographing children, especially in a group photograph, and I'm sure if you've ever photographed a family shot before with a baby in it or whatever, you finally might get the child right looking in the camera if that's what you wanted. And then all of a sudden, everyone's looking at the kid to make sure the kid's looking at you. I'm like, dude, like that's my problem. And you just screwed the photograph up. And now I have to deep etch your face and I've got to put your face on another face and hopefully come up with a clean photograph. So you have to be very specific with the dialogue on the day. So again, whether it's in the context of a portrait session or a family session at on a wedding day, so everyone, please do not look at the child, keep on looking at me, and then you might get a favourite auntie, someone who will get the baby's attention. Now, my wife Melissa has got a very joyful, beautiful energy about her, and she can attract just any energy, like she can quickly just grab the attention of a dog, a cat. It could be a little baby. She just plays little games and she can be next to the camera so I can get that safe shot looking in the camera. Now, to satisfy everyone thinks the baby's cute, the baby was just born or whatever. Yes, now you can freaking look at the baby and all interact with the baby. And now, as they get a bit older, you might get a shy child, let's say the age of 4 or 5 or 6. Depending on the confidence level of the child, I might literally say, everyone, look at Jimmy right now, woo! And now Jimmy can start freaking laughing, or he can go into a bucket of tears and you'll never see him again for the rest of the day. So you sort of got to be careful. Then every so often you'll just get an incredible exhibitionist like this young girl. So this is the actual bride and groom's daughter. And she was just full of personality, just such an amazing girl. This was actually photographed in Florence. And she had a great time. So I'm like, well, let's kids be kids. What happened was that I was taking a shot, looking in the camera, smiling. The wind blew the veil over her. And I didn't try to make it perfect and quickly put it back. I'm like, just have some fun, play around a little bit, you know. And she started just playing around and being an exhibitionist because that's who she is. And then every so often you'll get gold like this. I don't know what's going on here, but this girl is just licking the brother's forehead. And I'm like, well, let kids be kids. Like, you wouldn't stop that. And even sometimes if you have all the kids being behaved and one's bawling, I'm like, that's fun. Like, that's timely. You know, sometimes the portrait needs to show who this person is at this time of your life. Like, if this little child's a little pain in the ass, that's okay. Let's show this little pain in the ass when they're older, how in fact painful they were as a child. Sometimes if you can't fix it, embrace it, like own it, you know. This bride was really close with all the nieces and nephews and things like that. So what I did was I did a bit of a reveal. I even had some guests at the lobby of the hotel in the background, which I thought added an interesting element because they're not really distracting, but they add an extra element and twist to this shot. And then, of course, you know, every person, every uncle or auntie just wants, or parent, just wants their child to run up and give them a hug. And I'm like, well, if you get the bride in the background just inviting, with the inviting arms, then I take that shot and then I turn them around and she's cuddling all her beautiful little nephews and nieces, and now we've got this beautiful shot. So if this was a wedding day, if this was a family portrait, I can simply go in and photograph each individual. And you can see the personalities very clearly of each individual. And this little pain in the ass, I say that respectfully, I love that because we've got this very sort of predictable portraits of all these kids because I could control them. And people say, well, Jerry, why do you prefer photographing adults? Because I can control adults, I can't control kids. But if I photograph kids, and at least then again, I embrace the fact that you are going to get ones that are going to be a bit cute and bashful and confident or shy. But she just would not stop crying. And in my head, I was designing this portrait or this album, and I'm like, you know what? This is perfect. All of them are all being really well behaved, and this one little girl was just crying. I'm like, that's perfect. Great. Let's not try to fix her. That's just who she was at that moment. Fantastic. And then, you know, this actual bride was and the groom for that matter were photographers, so they wanted actually a bit of extra element, and they had photographed portraits. That was part of the little details that they had on these postcards that were tied to the clothing of the bridal party, which is really cool. And then sometimes what I'll do is whether I'm photographing a family portrait or whether I'm photographing a wedding, if kids are being kids, I will just have some fun and stir them, like, because kids like the little teasing in a playful way, in a respectful way. But, you know, the girls were just sitting together. And then that shot, that left-hand side shot was the one that I took first. And you could see they're a bit nervous, like, who's this guy photographing us? Because I'm a tall, 6'2", dark guy, and I can be quite intimidating. And then I disarm them a little bit. I'm like, come on, cuddles, you know, wiggles and giggles. And then all of a sudden they're wiggling, they're giggling, and then you just give them permission to be themselves. And then, you know, you'll see the one who's the exhibitionist, and then you'll have some fun. But kids are being kids. Am I going to sit there and pose every little finger and point the toe and bend the knee and shoulders back? No, they're kids. So posing has to be age appropriate. So, and again, it's also personality appropriate. That classic example that I often give is that you would not pose a corporate female CEO executive with pointing the toe, bending the knee, shifting the weight back, shoulders back, chest forward. No, it would look a little bit too overt, a bit too sexy, a bit too curvy. But you might want feminine, but you might want to say strong. So you might get hands on the crossing arms like that, bending the wrists in, so it's quite feminine. But then I lean forward, it means strong. One little knee over the other. So there's a soft little feminine touch, nice strong strength into the camera, beautiful. Again, posing is not just meant to be flattering. To be honest, it's more important that it's meaningful and actually it says something about the person that you are photographing and what they want to say to the viewer of that photograph. Now, it's going to be very rare that you get a girl like this who is just, I mean, I've never seen, I think she was like 8, 9 years of age, 10 years of age, I don't know what, but she would just pose like an adult. It was fascinating that anything I basically said, any pose that I wanted, she would just get into, and she would give me that little hint of a squint, add that little mystery. Now, here's something that you have to understand. Now, whether this is a wedding, more so when you're photographing, let's say, maybe a senior portrait, whether you're photographing maybe just a teenager for any description. See, most teenagers want to look like adults, but remember who's buying the portrait. So parents are buying the portrait. The parents, they want to see this. They want to see smiling. They want to see a 10-year-old. But the kids will often want to look like adults. So you've got to, I suggest certainly, first of all, age appropriate. You don't want to make a teenage girl, for example, look too sexy. It's just not appropriate most of the time. Maybe more so, maybe if she was modeling, and I wouldn't even say sexy, you might want about that high fashion look, no problem, but you don't want to be too overt with a teenage girl or even a girl like this. Now, in this case, she's just giving a quite confident look into the camera. Then she peers off, but you can see she has that confidence of an adult. She's almost like, there's just a presence about her, this quiet confidence. Then you make her giggle, and all of a sudden she's exactly her age. So remember who you're photographing for, and remember that you don't want to listen completely to the teenager or the young child because, again, remember who's buying the portrait. But you can represent a child as confident, beautiful, handsome, whatever word you want to use, and having a sort of a mature sensibility without going too far. This is a great example. You would say the pose is quite childlike, but there is a confidence with her gaze. And of course, now we see these beautiful triangles in the portrait as well. We are photographing with a very shallow depth of field, so we eliminate that background, but it's complementary to her skin tone and things like that. And then I thought, well, let's just make it a bit more casual. So I quite like the fact that she's, you'll often see teenagers put their knees up to their chest, and they will basically sit down on a normal chair and bring their feet right up there, and then you can get something a little bit casual, And remember too that whoever you're photographing, and especially girls, just be careful to be age appropriate. To be more specific, is do not photograph into the crotch. Even if she's wearing jeans, certainly still cover the crotch. And of course, if you're photographing a dress or a little jean shorts, just be age appropriate, and just be careful and make sure that you're doing the right thing by the individuals with respect to the people that you're photographing and the actual parents' wishes. But again, it's so funny how you could just make someone laugh and all of a sudden you just break out of that formality, but a soft little turn of a face, the hands is draping down, the hands sort of mirroring the feet, and all of a sudden you've just got a very different portrait. So what I want to do now, guys, is actually show you a lot of examples of a child at a wedding. So this is basically the groom's daughter. So this is Chris and Nellie, some of our best friends, and Nellie and Madison, who is Chris's daughter. So obviously, because we're all friends, and I know how close they are, as in the groom with the daughter, I'm like, I'm going to make some moments out of this. And again, try not to be too perfect, but show the relationship between them. So we basically had some shots where, he was doing up the back of the dress. So I thought, let's bring her up on top of something so she can be somewhat of a similar height. So he's doing up the back of the dress. And then they play this game where, she tries to be a lion or a tiger or something like that. And I know this, so I get that out of her. So they're just having fun, she's growling and having some fun, and this was always going to happen. We're going to get some shots, and of course, I'm going to go back and forth, we're going to kiss there. Now, again, this does not have to be a wedding. This could be a father with a daughter. This could be a mother with a son. Remember, if you're taking photographs of families, you photograph every combination, and I mean everything. Let's say, for example, you've got parents. Okay, so you've got, and again, by the way, I often say mum and dad, I often say bride and groom. This could be two brides, two grooms. We're 2020, get over it, like love is love, and that's all it is. So even though the examples that I'm giving are often heterosexual, just know that this could apply to any gender, same-sex marriages, weddings, whatever it may be. So if we've got two girls, as in two boys, two girls, and parents, what combinations would you do with the family portrait? Well, you would photograph the whole family together, traditionally, casually, walking, foreground, background. Like there's all these examples we've already shared. Then you would photograph the mum with all the kids, the dad with all the kids. Then you would photograph the mum with the girls, the mum with the boys, the dad with the girls, the dad with the guys. Then you might even do individual shots of each of the kids, with each of the parents. Then you'll photograph all the kids together. Then you'll photograph all the boys together, the girls together. In other words, do every combination imaginable. One, you're telling a story, it's history's sake as well, you're creating a legacy, but you also might want to sell all of this stuff. So it's all part of it. So we've got this shot, we've got giggling off in the distance, and I love the fact that she's lost her teeth there a little bit, and that's just part of growing up, but it's quite endearing. Now, I forget what happened on this wedding day, but you know, they were doing what they were doing, and I'm like, so Madison was on her own. So I'm going to photograph her on her own. Now, she was being deliberately a little bit cheeky, which I think is really cute. Like, that's just part of the persona. And because she's gotten to know Uncle Jerry, like, we have a lot of fun and we tease each other a little bit. But she looks off, and I know that she'll get into cheeky mode very quickly, having some fun, playing with her hair, and it just ends up being a lot of fun. So it's a combination of, you might have an idea that you want this kind of portrait, but no, it may not be a realistic based upon the age, based upon the fact that they're shy, that you are not going to get children to always do what you want to do in front of the camera. So let children be children. Now we've got the big reveal with the daughter and stepmom-to-be. So they're back to back. All right, so you can already see that she's getting emotional. So the new mum is getting emotional. Then we turn around, and I love the fact that she's just looking into her, and she's got the surprised look, very in anticipation of what she's going to feel about the dress. Then there's that cute little endearing hands that they give, which I think is just beautiful. Then we give the new mum, new stepmom, beautiful little kiss. Then we get something a little bit more traditional, and then we have turns kissing. While we're there, let's get dad back in. Let's have some fun there again. Let's go closer and horizontal. And then you always know when there's an extreme expression like this, there's always going to be a giggle afterwards. So just know that's going to happen. And then at one point, I think we were interrupted and we're doing something, and all of a sudden the bride just grabs the chin. And I thought it was just so beautiful. So first of all, I love this shot, but it's quite ironic that the minute I crop the bride's identity out, you get so much more feeling, and that's where hands become so much more expressive. Does that make sense? So here's that beautiful shot. You can see that happening. Then I crop the identity of the bride out, and then I just get that tender hand holding her. And of course, we've got that beautiful frame, cute little sort of bashful, but somewhat sort of, you know, confident sort of feeling. But there's just this. She's waiting for the approval, like, you know, am I part of your family, or whatever it may be, whatever metaphor you want to give. So remember that when you're taking these family portraits, it is not just about the big wide shot. It's about those little tender moments. It could be about the way the father just touches the daughter's hair. It could be some little mannerism that is just so unique to each individual relationship within the nucleus of that family, which is beautiful. Now, in this case, the bride has two sons. The groom has a daughter, and now they're becoming one. But you can see how there's a beautiful little hierarchy, which now makes that shot uniquely them as a new family. Would there have been a shot looking in the camera smiling? Absolutely. But these are the ones that actually make me feel a lot more than that looking in the camera shot. Later on that wedding day, they were about to get married, and we're just waiting for things to get set up. And then finally, I knew this was going to happen because they had to walk around this area. And then these two other girls that have come involved, the little bridesmaids, and I knew that this little interaction would happen. So they're looking left, they're looking right, and we're tracking them. I'm like, you know what, love this shot. I've got those in the can. Let's get the bride out of the way. Let's get the girls all together. And if you just yell out group hug to anyone, well, people know what that means. So they group hug, I can hardly see them. Then look at me, bang, we've got this beautiful shot, nice triangular composition, and then just get them walking across. So remember, don't try to control too much. And yes, there are people that have made styles out of classic, beautifully posed, you know, children portraiture, which is very rare, done well. In the context of a family portrait or a wedding, let kids be kids. In this case, I know that Madison and Chris have such a beautiful, unique relationship, and I was dying for this to happen. There's such a endearing photograph of the way a daughter looks at a father. And obviously it's quite, I wouldn't say unique in 2020, but it's not that often that, you know, you get to witness one of your parents' weddings. Yes, the nature of just relationships, you know, we get married, we get divorced, we get remarried, but, you know, the fact is that, you know, Madison will grow up and remember this photograph and how she felt when she was walking down the aisle, knowing that, you know, we can't wait to make this family official, you know. And the relationship, and you know that that's going to happen, you know that would happen as we walk down the aisle. So most of us would just focus on the bride walking down the aisle, but surely this would happen. If you photographed at least one wedding, you would know how to anticipate these kind of moments. And then during the wedding, you're going to go close up and you're going to know that there's going to be cute little mannerisms of the girls, whether they're doing some kind of ritual. In this case, they had like a little wooden sort of puzzle, somewhat of a unity ceremony. And she's holding the rings there, of course, and then she's doing a reading. So guys, that's what it's all about. I want you to remember, and certainly I can talk all day long about children's photographs. The reason why I'm not mechanically showing you how to pose a child, it's somewhat similar principles as photographing an adult male or an adult female, but less pronounced. Does that make sense? Like, you would not get a young 8-year-old girl to actually turn her hips, point her toes, slide her heel back, bend her knee, bring her shoulders back, lean the chest forward. You might simply just get one knee over the other. You might just get her hands, holding her hands together like this. So it's age appropriate. There's a little bit of femininity there, and it's really cute. It's fantastic. You might get a boy putting his hands in his pockets. You might get him leaning on a wall, like I told you, but you're not going to be after that absolute perfection, because that's just not the way life is. So let children be children, have fun with them, but immortalize what makes them unique, and that is their beautiful, unadulterated unpredictability. So I hope you enjoyed that.